Good afternoon, Africa. Good afternoon, African Confessions. I am back with another episode. There is a message that I received earlier on, and I gave it to one of our admins so that they can give us a translation. So this is a translation of a confession that I received. The message reads like this. My brother, for so many years we have been going around visiting and consulting so many prophets. Some of them, they have been able to help us here and there, but still we are facing the same situation. There is a situation that is in our family. At our homestead in the village from where we come from, we always see the spirit of a dead woman. So this dead woman, we were told that this woman was murdered by our uncle. Our uncle was staying in the suburbs. By the time that he was staying in the suburbs, he didn't have a house there in the suburbs, but he was just working as a garden boy. So we were told that he had a girlfriend, and with his girlfriend, they were working together for the same people. That woman that my uncle murdered was working as a housemaid. Then my uncle was working as a garden boy. So they were just using 2 back rooms. Those were the rooms that they used to stay in together. We were told that my uncle was someone who was very violent, and he was so abusive towards this woman that he was staying with. By the time that he was working in the suburbs, they never had peace in their relationship. They used to fight each and every time. And the reason why they used to fight, it is because my uncle was someone who was dating so many women. So whenever this woman would ask my uncle why he was dating so many women, we were told that my uncle used to beat up this woman. There was this other day when my uncle had gone out. When he came back, it was said that he had a new girlfriend, and he said to his wife, the one that he was staying and working with, he said to her, you have to go out, you have to give me space so that I can enjoy with my new girlfriend. But my uncle's wife refused. She said that you cannot bring another woman into my room. So they started to fight. They had a very big fight that night. So the people that they were working for, when they heard that there was a lot of commotion going on, they went to see what was happening. And when they saw that my uncle and his wife was fighting as usual, they saw that these people could not stay together any longer. The relationship that was between them was so toxic. Then those people decided that my uncle had to be separated from this woman. So my uncle was given another room so that he can stay in that room. Then my uncle's wife, she had to stay in another room. They started to live like that. But my uncle never changed his behavior. He kept on bringing new girlfriends almost each and every day to his room, but his former wife was never even bothered about it. As time went by, my uncle's former wife then found love, but she found love right next door. She started to date this guy who was working next door, who was working as a garden boy right next door. When my uncle found out that his former wife was now dating the guy who was working next door, he had a very big fight with that guy. He used to fight that guy, and he used to fight his former wife. Whenever that guy would come over to visit his former wife, he used to fight them a lot. Then there was this other day, my uncle and his ex-wife, they were just home alone. The owners of the house had gone out. So my uncle was busy working in the garden, whilst his ex-wife was busy in the kitchen doing her maid duties. Then they started to have a big fight. So my uncle was shouting whilst he was outside. Then his ex-wife was also shouting back whilst she was doing her maid duties in the kitchen. They were fighting as usual, but on that day, it was the day that my uncle was going to murder his own ex-wife. What happened is that as they were shouting at each other, my uncle ran and he grabbed an axe. He ran back into the kitchen where his ex-wife was as she was shouting at him. Then he started to attack her with the axe that he was holding. When my uncle had seen that he had murdered his own ex-wife, what he did next was so shocking, because he took the axe, then he started to chop up some of his ex-wife body parts. Then he took those chopped up body parts and he put them in a pot, and he started to cook those body parts. After he had finished cooking those body parts, he ran away. By the time that the police found him, he was already dead. What my uncle did next is that he traveled back to the village, and whilst he was in the village, that is where he ended his own life. So the relatives of that woman who was murdered by my uncle, they refused then to bury their relative. They said that they wanted a compensation of at least about 45 cows. Our family is not a wealthy family, so what my father and some of our relatives did is that they approached that family and they told them that they had only 10 cows, and they asked them if they could bring those 10 cows, will they be able to bury their relatives so that they can continue with the negotiations, because this woman had been staying at the mortuary for quite a long time. Then that family agreed that if you bring those 10 cows, we are going to bury our relative that your brother has murdered. So they reached an agreement. After the cows had been sent to that family said that they were going to collect the body from the mortuary and they will be going to bury their own relative. But what they did next surprised everyone, because with a whole convoy of funeral cars, they came to our village. Then they went to the place where our uncle had built his house. With their convoy of funeral cars, they had traveled from their village straight to our village. When they had arrived at our uncle's house, they removed the coffin from the car and then they started to do their traditional rituals. We were told that they had a goat with them. They took the goat out of the car, then they slaughtered the goat. They started to sprinkle the blood of that goat on their relative's coffin. After they had finished, they took the axe that they had used to slaughter that goat. Then they placed that axe into the coffin. Then the whole convoy of funeral cars made a U-turn. They returned back to their village. As a family, we had no choice, but we had to bury our uncle's wife because her own relatives had just dumped her coffin right in front of our uncle's house. We were not going to leave her body just like that. Otherwise, it was going to be taboo. So we took that woman, then we buried her right next to where we had buried our uncle. As we were growing up, we noticed that once a year, my father and his siblings, like his sisters and his older and younger brothers, once a year they used to meet up. They used to meet at the place where our uncle had built his home, and at that time our uncle's house was already falling apart. But once a year at night, our father and his siblings, they would go over there, they would do their rituals, and we don't know what kind of rituals they were doing, but they used to do these rituals throughout the night, and we don't know where they were sleeping because our uncle's house was already falling apart. I have a few relatives that have attempted to rebuild my uncle's house, but all of the people that have attempted to rebuild my uncle's house, all of them, they have died, and the way that they die, it is just a mysterious death. Like this other sister of mine who was working in South Africa, she was staying with her boyfriend there, so she had managed to rebuild my uncle's house. She had managed to reach the window level. The last time that I spoke with her, she told me that she was traveling to Musina, saying that she wanted to buy some roofing sheets so that she can send them back to our village so that the builders can quickly finish up the house. But when she traveled back from Musina going to the place where she was staying with her boyfriend, that is when they had a very big fight with her boyfriend. So her boyfriend then beat her up. After he had beaten her up, she started to get sick. Then she went to the hospital. Whilst she was in hospital, that is where she died, and we were told that she had a clot in her blood. And it is not my sister alone who has died whilst attempting to rebuild our uncle's house. We have a lot of relatives that have suffered the same death. As for me, the place that I have built my own house, it is right next to the place where our uncle had built his house. So some of these things, whenever someone will be passing by my house, they always tell me that we always see a mysterious woman. Like the last time when I was in South Africa, I had gone to South Africa to look for a job. I was working with my wife there in South Africa. So when she was pregnant, I said to her, you have to go back home so that you can rest, because she was always sick. so I had to let her go back home so that she can be with the kids. Whilst she was at home, there was this other neighbor of mine. He said to me, I was passing through your house last night and I saw that there was someone who was standing in the middle of the compound, and that person was playing with your solar lights. So I said to myself, why are you letting your kids playing with these very expensive solar lights? And when my neighbor told me that he had seen someone standing in the middle of the compound playing with these expensive lights, and I was so angry because I believed him when he said that it should be one of your kids. I am sure that I saw one of your kids playing with these lights. I then called my wife. I wanted to ask her why was she letting the kids play with these expensive lights, but my wife said to me that each and every night after they had finished cooking and eating, she made sure that whenever she goes back to her bedroom, she always take those solar lights with her so that they can be kept safe. When she told me that she had been keeping those lights safe, that is when we realized that the same spirit that had been seen so many times by different people roaming around the place where our uncle built his house, that is the same spirit now that was being seen standing in the middle of my compound. At that time, my wife was pregnant. Then she told me that she had a miscarriage. The way that she had the miscarriage, she said that one day she was busy doing the dishes. Then she saw that there was someone who was standing behind her. When she turned around to see who was standing behind her, she said that she saw a woman, but the woman then walked so fast. My wife said that woman then went to the back of the cooking hut. I don't know where my wife got the courage from. Maybe it was the spirit that was calling her so that the spirit can do whatever it wanted to do with her. My wife told me that she followed that woman to the back of the cooking hut, and when she went to the back of the cooking hut, when my wife went to the back of the cooking hut, she said she saw that woman whom she had seen walking very fast, but now she was facing the opposite direction. The last thing that my wife remembers, she told me that she only saw that woman turning around so that she can face her. That is when my wife collapsed to the ground. When she regained her consciousness, that woman had just disappeared, and she noticed that she was already having a miscarriage. That is how my wife lost our baby. After my wife had this miscarriage, that is when we started to go around to different prophets, consulting with so many prophets, and we are told one and the same thing. We are told that even now there is this other relative of ours. We were told that they are using this spirit of this woman who was murdered by our uncle to make money. And we were told that when my wife had this miscarriage, that relative of mine took the blood that had come out of my wife and they used that blood for money-making rituals. And when I think about this prophecy that we were given, it angers me so much that I want to murder this relative of mine. Because as a family, we once had a discussion. What we wanted to do is that we wanted to go to that woman's family who was murdered by our uncle. We wanted to approach that family so that we can ask for forgiveness and to apologize for what our uncle did to their relative. But this relative of ours, whom we were given a prophecy that right now they are using that same woman's spirit to make money, and they are using the blood that came out of my wife when she lost her pregnancy for their money-making rituals. But what he said to us as a family truly angers me, especially me as someone who has lost a baby. And the way that I lost the baby, it was in a mysterious way. But he said to us as a family, I am not going to use my money to travel and to go and to ask for forgiveness to those people, because how have I wronged them? Even God will not judge me for the sins that was committed by my uncle. When he committed those sins, I was not there. I am going to use this money that God has given me to take care of my kids and to make sure that my kids, when I die, they can have a better future than I have right now. So my brother, this is the situation that I am facing each and every day. I think about murdering this relative of mine because they have pained me so much. Dear listeners, right there was a message that I received from Anonymous. Then I asked one of our admins to give us a translation, hoping that you were able to understand this confession. Let's meet again in the following episodes.